Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie and I appreciate y'all stopping by. In this video, I'm excited to share with you these 6 festive Christmas DIYs that you can easily make at home. So grab your hot cocoa, get cozy, and let's get started with these fun and easy DIY projects. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay updated on my latest videos. Let's go ahead and jump into DIY number 1. For this project, I used this 17-inch tree cone that I picked up on sale at Hobby Lobby, as well as some of this furry green fabric from Hobby Lobby. I cut a piece of the green fabric large enough to wrap the entire tree cone and used hot glue to attach it to the cone. Once I had the entire cone covered with the fabric, I went ahead and continued to attach all of the excess fabric to the tree so that it was fuller and the seam was covered. I then cut some of the excess fabric from the bottom of the cone and folded the excess over onto the bottom of the tree using hot glue to secure it in place to cover the bottom for a nice finished look. I used one of these jumbo wooden dowels from Walmart for the tree trunk. I cut a piece of the dowel at 5 inches using my mini miter saw that I will have linked in my Amazon shop under crafting must-haves. I also used one of these round wood discs from this package that I picked up on sale at Hobby Lobby for the base. I used hot glue to attach the wooden dowel to the bottom of the tree, getting it as close to the center as possible, and used more hot glue to attach the other end of the dowel to the center of the wooden disc. Next, I used one of these small wooden hearts from this pack of wooden hearts that I picked up at Hobby Lobby during Valentine's Day and used Waverly chalk paint in the color crimson and gave it one good coat. Once the paint was dry, I used hot glue to attach it to the tree about where I thought would be appropriate for a heart, and this Grinchmas tree is finished. I absolutely love this tree. I think the addition of the heart that represents the 3 sizes of growth really made it pop. I think I'll go ahead and make 2 more at different heights before the holiday season. Moving right along to DIY number 2. For this project, I used 2 sheets of each of these 3 designs of scrapbook paper that I picked up on sale at Hobby Lobby. I used my Cricut to cut out circles from the paper that are roughly 1.36 inches, but you could also use a circle paper punch to do this. I also used one of these 3.7-inch foam cones from Hobby Lobby. I started by wrapping the entire cone with some 4-ply jute cord from Walmart, using hot glue as needed to secure it in place. Next, I used one of these pieces of wood from Dollar Tree as the trunk of the tree and used hot glue to attach it to the bottom of the cone as close to the center as possible. I used some of these size 8 1/2-inch sequin pins from Walmart to attach the circles to the tree. I wrapped the paper circles around a glue stick to curve them before placing them onto the tree. I started placing the music circles around the base of the tree, allowing them to hang over the edge a little bit, and used a pin in the center of each to attach them to the tree. I worked my way all the way around the tree, letting the circles overlap just a little. For the next layer, I used the Santa circles and repeated the steps to curve them and then used pins to attach them around the tree, letting them overlap the music circles just a little. For the third layer, I used the candy cane circles and repeated the steps to attach them around the tree, again letting them overlap the Santa circles and each other just a bit. I continued to repeat this pattern and these steps until I had the entire tree covered with the paper circles. The circles at the top of the tree were not laying flat, so I used tiny dabs of hot glue to secure them in place, and this one is done. I wanted a set of these trees, so I used one of these 3.8-inch foam cones from Hobby Lobby and repeated the steps to attach the paper circles, again using the same pattern, and attached 2 pieces of the wood for the trunk. These turned out absolutely adorable, and I will definitely be making more in the future with some different patterns of paper. On to DIY number 3. For this project, I used 3 of these wood hanging wall shelves from the Dollar Tree and used wood filler to fill in all the holes. Once the wood filler was completely dry, I sanded it down so that it was nice and smooth. I applied hot glue along one edge of one of the shelves and placed another shelf up against it to attach them together. I then repeated this step to attach the last shelf to the other side to create the bottom and sides of my crate. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster and mixed it with some baking soda until I got a paste-like consistency, and then painted the entire crate with one good coat. I also used one of these 1/2-inch dowel rods cut to 13.5 inches long and painted it with the same paint and baking soda mixture. Next, I used a piece of this white ready board from Dollar Tree and this tree template that I cut out of some regular printer paper, and it is roughly 8.5 inches tall and 5 5/8 inches wide. I placed the template onto the foam board and traced it out with a pencil. Once I had that side traced, I flipped the template over and placed it on the foam board to mirror the first piece and traced this side onto the foam board. After I had both sides of the tree traced out, I took a pencil and connected all the lines so that I would know where to cut, and used a sharp utility knife to cut the tree out. I also went ahead and sanded the edges of the tree so that they were nice and smooth. I then repeated this step to create another tree using the foam board. Next, I used 4 pieces of this scrapbook paper that I got on sale at Hobby Lobby. To attach the paper to the tree, I used a regular school glue stick and worked in sections, applying the glue and smoothing the paper out on top of it. You can see the paper isn't large enough to cover the entire tree, but I'll be fixing that once the glue dries. Once the glue was completely dry, I used a sharp utility knife to trim off the excess paper hanging over the edges of the tree. I took those excess pieces and used them to cover any piece of the tree that the original piece of paper did not cover. I then repeated this step to cover the back side of the tree as well as the other tree. Next, I used folk art enamel paint in the color gold ore to paint all of the exposed edges of both trees as well as the top and side edges of the crate. After the paint was dry, I used hot glue to attach one of the trees to each open end of the crate. Then, to finish this project, I used hot glue to attach each end of the dowel rod to the top of the trees just under the point, and this crate is finished. I am thrilled with how this crate turned out, and I cannot wait to decorate it with some winter or holiday florals. Are you looking for even more creative inspiration for your next Christmas DIYs? Look no further than the Just Our Imagination playlist, hosted by Kathy Jo from Kathy Jo DIYs and Brenda from Rustic and Lace DIYs. This playlist is filled with fun and unique DIY ideas that will spark your imagination and get your creative juices flowing. I will be leaving a link to the playlist in the description box below, so you can head over there and check out the other videos in the playlist once you finish my video. I will also be leaving a link to Kathy Jo and Brenda's channels in the description box, so be sure to go check them out as well. Let's jump into DIY number 4. For this project, I used this 3.8-inch foam egg from Hobby Lobby. First, I placed the bottom of it against the table and, applying a bit of pressure, rocked it back and forth to flatten out the bottom just a little. I then used some of this 6-ply natural jute cord and wrapped the entire egg using hot glue as needed to secure it in place. Next, I traced out a pair of antlers that were proportionate to the egg from the computer and shaded in the back with a pencil so that I could transfer it onto some foam board. I taped the template onto a piece of foam board and used a pen to trace the outline of the antlers to transfer them onto the board. I used a sharp utility knife to cut them out. I repeated this step to cut out a pair of ears and a tail from the foam board. Once I had all of the pieces cut out, I used this 3-ply jute cord to completely wrap each of them, using hot glue as needed to secure it in place. Next, I used Rust-Oleum wood stain in the color American Walnut to stain all of the pieces of the reindeer's head and set them aside to dry for several hours. Once the antlers were completely dry, I took a toothpick and cut it in half and placed each half into one of the antlers so that they would be easier to attach to the head. I then repeated this step to add a piece of toothpick to each of the ears. I used one of these 3/4-inch half wood beads for the reindeer's nose. I will leave these in my Amazon shop link below. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color ink and gave the bead one good coat. For the eyes, I used these 3/8 inch black buttons that I had in my stash. To assemble the head, I applied some hot glue on the bottom of one of the antlers and pushed the end of the toothpick down into the top of the head. I repeated this step to add the other antler onto the other side of the head, making sure the two antlers were even. I then placed the ears onto the head right in front of the antlers, again using hot glue on the bottoms of the ears and pushing the toothpicks down inside the foam, making sure they were even. Next, I placed the nose onto the head using hot glue to secure it in place. I used hot glue to attach the buttons to the reindeer's head in front of the ears, making sure that they were as even as possible to create the eyes. Here is how the reindeer's head turned out. For the reindeer's body, I used this medium-sized crate from Walmart, and for the legs, I used 4 of these wood pieces that are 9 inches tall and 2.5 inches wide from this wood economy pack that I got on sale at Hobby Lobby. I used a combination of wood glue and hot glue to attach the legs to the crate. I used the wood glue for a stronger, more permanent hold and the hot glue for an immediate hold. I applied the 2 glues to the top of the legs and placed them onto the crate even with the bottom slat, and repeated this step to attach all 4 legs. Next, I used Rust-Oleum wood stain in the color American Walnut to stain the body of the reindeer once the glue had set up. Once the stain was completely dry, I used hot glue to attach the reindeer's head and tail to the body, and this one is done. I used hot glue for video purposes, but I think an E6000 or stronger adhesive may be a better choice. Y'all, this little guy turned out just too cute. It's one of my most favorite Christmas DIYs of all time. I'm planning on putting this little guy beside my tree and using it for some cozy fleece blankets and then for my son's stocking on Christmas Eve. Moving on to DIY number 5. For this project, I used this 6-inch by 2-inch piece of balsa wood and this 4.5-inch by 2-inch piece of balsa wood that I had in my stash. I used Minwax wood finish in the color Golden Pecan and stained both pieces of wood. Once the stain was dry, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White and haphazardly painted the front of the small block with one thin coat. Next, I used my Cricut to cut out the words Joy in black vinyl and applied it to the front of the small block and the words To the World in black vinyl, along with a tree line and a couple of snowflakes in a white vinyl, and applied it to the front of the larger block. I then used some matte Mod Podge to seal the vinyl on the blocks. Once that was dry, I applied some hot glue onto the bottom of the small block and placed it on top of the larger block in the center. Next, I used one of these 4.8-inch foam circles from the Dollar Tree and this large Snowman cookie cutter from this set that I picked up at Amazon, and I will have these linked in my Amazon shop below. I placed the cookie cutter down on the center of the foam circle and pushed it down into the foam just enough so that it stayed in place, and placed a piece of scrap wood on top and gently used a hammer to push the cookie cutter all the way through the foam. Once I had the cookie cutter pushed all the way through the foam, I pushed the foam shape out of the cookie cutter. Next, I took a piece of sandpaper and gently sanded the edges of the snowman so that it was nice and smooth. I used some lightweight spackling from the Dollar Tree and mixed it with a tiny amount of water to create an icing consistency, and used a stippling technique to apply it to the body of the snowman so that it looked like it was made out of snow. While the spackling mixture was still wet, I used some of this fine white glitter from the Dollar Tree and sprinkled it all over the body of the snowman to make it look more like snow and so that it would glisten. Once the spackle was completely dry, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color ink to paint the hat and gloves of the snowman. After the paint was dry, I used this black and white ribbon from the Dollar Tree and cut off a piece long enough to wrap around the neck of the snowman, and then cut it in half to make it thinner to create the scarf. Next, I took a small piece of string and wrapped it around the snowman's neck and tied it into a knot over to one side. I then took 2 of these small gold bells that I had in my stash and tied one on each end of the string at different heights and cut off the excess string. I wrapped the piece of ribbon around the snowman's neck and tied it off to the side to cover up the string and cut off the excess ribbon at an angle. Then, to finish up this project, I applied some hot glue to the bottom of the snowman and placed it in the center on top of the small block. I think this turned out really cute, and it was incredibly easy to make the snowman out of foam using a cookie cutter. And last but not least, DIY number 6. For this project, I used this 6-ply natural jute cord from Hobby Lobby and cut a piece just a little bit longer than my mantle. Once I had the jute cut to size, I made a loop roughly the same size in each end to create the hangers for the garland and cut off any of the excess. Next, I used some of this 3-ply jute twine from Walmart and cut 6 pieces that are roughly 10 inches long, 4 pieces that are roughly 8 inches long, and 10 pieces that are roughly 6 inches long. I used 6 of the small cookie cutters from 2 of these sets from Dollar General and tied one of the 10-inch twine pieces to the top of each cookie cutter. I also used this 4-pack of mini ornaments from Walmart and tied one of the 8-inch twine pieces to each of the ornaments. Next, I used 10 of these silver bells from this pack that I picked up on sale at Hobby Lobby and tied one of the 6-inch pieces of twine to the top of each bell. Once I had the twine attached to each of the pieces, I started assembling the garland, starting with one of the matte silver bells on each end. When I had the bells in place, I decided on a pattern of matte bell, cookie cutter, shiny bell, antler, and matte bell, and tied them to the large jute cord, spacing them out as evenly as possible, repeating this pattern until I got to the other end of the garland. I did end up using only 9 of the bells and 4 of the cookie cutters on my garland, but it will vary depending on the overall length of the garland. I think this garland turned out fantastic. I love the rustic feel. I think it's going to look amazing on my mantle with the stockings this year, and I may even add a string of white fairy lights. And that's going to be it for all of today's Christmas DIYs. I hope you enjoyed all of these projects, and please let me know in the comments below which one was your favorite. Out of all of the projects today, my favorite is the reindeer crate. Please don't forget to go check out the Just Our Imagination playlist, as well as the channels of today's wonderful host. All of the links will be in the description box below. I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out here on YouTube. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you waiting for? Click that button and stick around for a little while. I have tons of fun holiday projects on the way. I'll see y'all next time.